At Los Angeles International Airport, an 11-year-old African-American boy named Noah Bennett stood beside his mother, Alicia, preparing for a very special flight. It was his first time flying alone, and more importantly, his very first time in first class, a gift from his father, Ethan Bennett, a successful black entrepreneur and CEO of the tech conglomerate Syntec. The afternoon sunlight streamed through the terminal's wide glass windows, casting a golden hue across the polished floors and illuminating Noah's eager yet composed face, a brown-skinned boy with neatly coiled hair and eyes full of wonder. Though the Bennetts were financially well off, they raised Noah with humility. Ethan often reminded his son, "As a black boy, you have to stand stronger, be kinder, and never let anyone strip you of your dignity." Alicia, a graceful and sharp-witted woman, encouraged Noah to navigate the world with both empathy and wisdom. This trip to New York wasn't just about reuniting with his father, it was a step toward independence and self-worth. Noah couldn't have imagined that minutes after stepping into the luxurious comfort of first class, a space that should represent equality and civility, he would be forced to confront a bitter truth. Racism doesn't always wait outside the velvet curtain. Noah stepped into the first-class cabin, his heart thumping with excitement. He smiled brightly as the flight attendant guided him to seat 2A, a spacious window seat. The small black boy seemed dwarfed by the plush leather chairs around him. His wide eyes scanned every detail, the personal touchscreen, the soft goose-down pillow, and the glossy menu card. He thought to himself, "Dad was right. This is a reward I've earned." But the peace didn't last long. A middle-aged white man in a gray suit and silk tie approached, narrowing his eyes at Noah, then glancing at the seat number. Without a word, he turned and briskly walked to the front of the cabin, whispering something to a nearby flight attendant. Noah sensed something wasn't right. Moments later, a female attendant named Rachel approached. Her smile was forced, the kind Noah had unfortunately seen before in uncomfortable situations. "Hello there," she said sweetly. "It seems there might be a little mix-up with your seat. May I see your boarding pass?" Noah hesitantly handed it over. Rachel scanned it, then asked, "Are you traveling alone?" "Yes, ma'am," Noah answered softly. "My mom checked me in and handed me over to the crew." Rachel gave a tight nod, then walked back to the man who was now fuming. Another attendant, Brent, joined her. They whispered briefly before making their way back to Noah's seat. Brent cleared his throat. "Young man, we're sorry, but a special needs passenger has been assigned to seat 2A. We'll need to relocate you to economy." Noah blinked in confusion. "Is he okay? Does he need a wheelchair?" he asked, genuine concern in his voice. Brent hesitated. "No, he's a VIP. He has specific preferences, and, well, we need your cooperation." The phrase, "he's a VIP," hit Noah like a punch. He looked down at the boarding pass with his name printed clearly on it. "But this is my seat. My family purchased it," he said, his voice small but firm. Rachel offered a practiced smile. "Sometimes these things happen. We hope you understand." Noah could feel the weight of every glance in the cabin. Eyes settled on him, not with kindness, but with scrutiny. A lone black child in a sea of affluent, mostly white adults. He remembered his father's words, "If you know you're right, you have every right to stand your ground, even if others doubt you." "I'm sorry," Noah replied, "but I don't want to change seats." His heart pounded, but his gaze didn't waver. Rachel looked at Brent. Brent frowned. Passengers nearby began murmuring. A few looked away. A few glared, more annoyed about the delay than the injustice unfolding. When Brent's tone hardened into a threat, that if Noah didn't comply, he could be removed from the flight, the boy's fingers trembled. He reached for his phone and quickly texted his father, "They're trying to make me leave my seat. Dad, please help." He hit send and fell silent, surrounded by suspicion, not for anything he did, but because of who he was and what he looked like. As the message, "They're trying to take my seat. Dad, please help," was sent, Noah sat frozen, his fingers still gripping the phone. He wasn't sure if his father, Ethan Bennett, CEO of Syntec, was in a meeting or would even see the text in time. The atmosphere in first class was heavy. Gazes filled with discomfort, annoyance, and even disdain began circling the cabin. A young black child sitting in seat 2A clearly didn't match the expectations of the tailored corporate crowd. Toward the front, the white man from earlier, Douglas Walker, a senior platinum member of the airline, still stood stiffly, arms crossed, glaring like he was the one wronged. He's obviously in the wrong seat. He scoffed loud enough for others to hear. Some kid being treated like a VIP? Rachel and Brent returned. Noah, Rachel said softly but with tension edging her voice. Please understand, we don't want to have to call airport security. Security? Just for not giving up his rightful seat? Noah took a deep breath, preparing to call his dad. Before he could press the button, his screen lit up with a reply. Stay calm, son. I'm calling now. Don't move. They won't dare. Moments later, the phone rang. Noah answered with shaking hands. Dad, put me on speaker and handed to the attendant. Ethan's voice was low and commanding. Noah looked up at Rachel. My dad wants to speak with you, he said. She hesitated, then reluctantly took the phone, eyes still skeptical. Hello? Who is this? This is Ethan Bennett, CEO of Syntec, and the legal guardian of the passenger in seat 2A. If you continue this misconduct, I will immediately escalate the matter to Delta's executive board, including Ed Bastian, your CEO. Hand the phone to the highest-ranking person on board. Now. Rachel's face paled as she handed the phone to the lead flight attendant, Linda Mason, who had just emerged from the cockpit area after being alerted to the situation. On the other end, Ethan continued, if my son is touched or removed from that seat, every person involved will face direct legal consequences. Put me through to the captain if needed, or call your corporate office. I'm not bluffing. By now, the cabin was buzzing. Passengers whispered. A white woman in front of Noah leaned slightly toward Rachel. If he has a valid ticket, why is he being asked to move? He's just a child. An elderly black couple in row 3 nodded in agreement. Let the boy stay, they said calmly. Douglas, however, was far from done. You're letting a kid disrupt this flight? I'm a premium member. I deserve that seat, he barked. Linda, holding the phone to her ear, looked increasingly alarmed. Brent leaned in and whispered. He's not bluffing. They have real connections up there. Within 3 minutes, Rachel received a direct call from Delta's operations center. A stern voice ordered them to let the boy remain seated and to immediately cease any attempt to relocate him. If anyone was being disruptive, that person, not the child, should be removed. Linda exhaled and turned toward Douglas. Sir, please come to the galley so we can look into alternate accommodations for you. What, you're moving me? For a black kid? Douglas snarled. Linda didn't respond. Brent stepped in to escort him toward the front. Douglas stood up angrily, throwing Noah a final glare as though his entitlement had been stolen. Noah stayed still, his heart pounding but his expression steady. From behind, the elderly woman smiled and gave him a thumbs up. You did good, sweetheart. The flight took off nearly 30 minutes late. Rachel and Brent now avoided passing Noah's row. They delivered first-class meals without making eye contact. Linda eventually returned, setting a juice box and a cookie on Noah's tray. Sorry for the inconvenience, she said curtly. Noah didn't answer. He opened his dad's message again. You don't need to give up your seat to be respected. Sometimes sitting still is the bravest thing you can do. Outside the window, the sky remained calm, but inside that aircraft, a storm had passed, and an 11-year-old boy had learned a lesson he would carry forever. Dignity and justice aren't things anyone has the right to take, not on the ground. And not in the sky. When the plane finally landed at JFK Airport, the evening light streamed through the window, casting a calm glow over the cabin, so different from the storm that had unfolded earlier. Noah remained seated in 2A, his eyes on the horizon, but his mind still replaying every tense second of being asked to give up his seat simply because of the color of his skin. Though things had quieted down, a shadow lingered, a sense that he was never truly welcome in a space that should have been available to anyone who rightfully belonged there. Quietly, he gathered his backpack, pulled out his phone, and texted his father. I've landed. Thank you, Dad, I'm okay. Thousands of miles away, in Syntec's high-rise office in Los Angeles, Ethan Bennett was anything but calm. The phone call from his son had ignited a fire, not only the rage of a father but the resolve of a leader who had built his life around values of fairness. inclusion, and respect. Immediately after ending the call with the flight crew, Ethan got on the phone with Delta Airlines executive team, demanding an urgent investigation into what had happened. His personal assistant, Maya Tran, furiously typed every word, assembling legal briefs and statements to be sent to his attorneys. "I want a full list of everyone on that flight crew," Ethan said. "I want to know who made the call, who enabled it, and who stood silent while my son was humiliated." Within hours, social media caught fire. Several passengers, including the elderly black couple seated behind Noah, began speaking out. One of their tweets went viral. "We sat right behind an 11-year-old black boy who was nearly removed from his first-class seat because a white man said he deserved it more. The boy had a valid ticket. He didn't cry. He didn't yell. He just said, 'I'm not leaving.' A quiet hero." Major news outlets picked up the story. Headlines like, "Black boy asked to give up first-class seat for white VIP. Delta responds too late," began to flood every feed. Social justice groups, activists, and celebrities amplified the story, many sharing their own similar experiences. Under growing pressure, Delta couldn't remain silent. Within 48 hours of Ethan's demand for action, the airline issued a formal statement acknowledging the incident, apologizing to the Bennett family, and announcing the immediate suspension of the 3 flight crew members involved, Rachel, Brent, and Linda. The company also pledged to review its policies for handling unaccompanied minors and update diversity and equity training programs across all departments. But Ethan wasn't done. In a private legal meeting, he made his stance clear. "We're not taking hush money. We're not signing any NDAs. What we want is structural change, new protocols, disciplinary action for those involved, and the creation of a fund to support children of color who face discrimination while traveling." Back at home, Noah recounted the story to his mother with eyes that held exhaustion and pride. Alicia listened intently, gently brushing his hair and saying, "You did the right thing. You weren't alone." Public reaction was mixed. One side strongly supported the Bennett family's bold actions, calling the incident a turning point that forces the airline industry to look in the mirror. Others argued that firing the crew was too harsh. But for Ethan, the issue wasn't who lost their job, it was who took responsibility for allowing racial bias to hide behind the mask of standard procedure. In the weeks that followed, Noah Bennett's story was no longer just an isolated incident. It became a symbol, the story of a young black boy being asked to give up his first-class seat because a white passenger was more important, spread across national headlines. But what resonated most wasn't just the injustice Noah endured, it was how, at only 11 years old, he chose not to bow his head. With unwavering support from his parents, Noah was not pushed into the media spotlight. Ethan and Alicia agreed. Their son would not be paraded as a victim for sympathy, but instead be taught that standing up is not only a right, it's a responsibility. Especially for those with a voice. Ethan founded Skybound Equity, a new initiative from Syntech, designed to provide legal support, scholarships, and protection for minority travelers who experience discrimination. And Noah, still just a child, began sharing his experience through short videos aimed at young travelers, teaching them how to respond when treated unfairly, how to stay calm, and most importantly, how to never lose their self-worth, no matter where they are. At school, Noah was seen in a new light, not just because of the news coverage, but because of the quiet maturity he carried. He didn't boast. He was still the kid who loved science books and drawing robots. But when he thought back to that first-class seat, he didn't remember luxury. He remembered the barrier he broke, and the invisible wall he helped dismantle. Delta Airlines, facing heavy backlash, officially revised their seating dispute protocols, implemented anti-discrimination training for all flight crew, and added Skybound Equity to its list of community partners for outreach programs. One crisp morning at LAX, Noah and his parents prepared for another flight, another first-class ticket, but this time, the flight attendant smiled warmly, bowed slightly, and said, "Welcome back, seat 2A is waiting for you." Noah looked up at his father, smiled, and walked forward, not as a child granted privilege, but as someone who knew he deserved respect.